Welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and each week I talk with event professionals and entrepreneurs about how they plan, promote, and run their events. We help you build your events empire by growing your business using live events, whether you're running community meetups or conferences, trade shows, and other events. We focus on finding actionable tips that you can use straight away. We want you to get more attendees, produce epic events, make more money, and most importantly, to do it all with no stress. This podcast is sponsored by EventsFrame. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. Make the switch from Eventbrite today to our amazing ticketing and registration system with no ticket fees. Most ticketing systems charge you a minimum of 3% of the ticket price, but we just have a flat, low fee with no ticket fees and no restrictions. There's literally no system out there that is cheaper than EventsFrame. It's also super easy to use, and you can embed your tickets in your website, or you can use our own website builder, which is really simple. We have amazing options to apply all kinds of discounts and all the features you'd expect from a much more expensive system like QR code check-in. Go to eventsframe.com, that's eventsframe.com, for a free, no-risk, 1-month trial. Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast. It's Thursday the 11th of October and I'm coming to you from our offices in Prague. Today I had the pleasure to talk to Stuart Jones, who came on the line from Melbourne, Australia. Stuart runs some really interesting events. The first one is Coworkation, lifestyle retreats. So he rents a house in a cool place in Bali or Barcelona, and has a retreat for anything from a week to a month with entrepreneurs where they do a lot of cool adventures, but also work on their businesses. And in addition, the really impressive thing about Stuart is he started a new conference this year called Freedom X Fest, which was run in a remote village in the Pyrenees. And from never having run this conference before, he got over 400 attendees, and it was a 6-day conference. So that's really a huge undertaking. And we get into how he managed to do that, how he built his Facebook community, and really ran an epic event in the first year. Stuart's had a lot of adventures. He came to Spain and he started off running a pop-up youth hostel in his apartment. He ran tours to Oktoberfest. Really cool, interesting guy. So I hope you enjoy the interview. Remember, the podcast is sponsored by EventsFrame. That's the company I'm involved in. We are ticketing and attendee management, so think Eventbrite, but without the ticket fees. It's a really great product. Please, if you're interested to try it, just email me, dan@eventsframe.com, dan@eventsframe.com. I'll give you a special podcast discount if you put podcast in the title. No ticket fees, creates great websites, or you can embed the tickets in your own site. We've got QR code check-in. We've got amazing discounts, really cool landing pages. So give it a go. And that's it for today. Hope you enjoy the interview. And here's Stuart. Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm delighted to be here today with Stuart Jones from Coworkation.com. How are you doing, Stuart?
Yeah, great, Dan. Great to be chatting with you, mate.
Yeah, you too. We were just chatting. I'm in Prague today. Stuart's in Melbourne, Australia, where I spent a year. I actually know to call it Melbourne because English people normally call it Melbourne, and it's actually Melbourne.
Yeah. Well, the Spanish, when I was in Barcelona, would call it Melbourne.
Melbourne. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, Stuart's been on my radar for a while because he runs a bunch of events, Coworkation, which are kind of like retreats for digital nomads and location-independent entrepreneurs, and Freedom X Fest, which I know is being rebranded, and that's kind of a conference event, which looked like it was really cool in Spain recently. So we were both on a couple of podcasts. There was a Freedom Loving podcast with Kevin Koskela, which we were both on, and that's where I first heard you. And then Chris Reynolds' podcast, the Business Method, which you were on and I was on as well. So we've kind of crossed podcast paths, and so I really wanted to get you on to talk about your events.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on, mate. And if I can help out with anything with regards to events, then I guess it's been part of my life for the past 15 to 20 years, creating events. That's sort of like all I've done really with my careers. So
yeah, that's cool. Well, can you give us a bit of background? Just people who don't know you, like, how did you get into the entrepreneurial space? Obviously, you're from Australia. And you've spent time in Europe. And what was your background that led you to be an entrepreneur?
I ran out of money. I was back. Yes, I was forced into it. Really, I was backpacking, and I'd been on the road for a couple of years. I got to Spain, on the west coast of Spain, San Sebastian, beautiful beachside town. Was pretty much all out of money. I thought, geez, okay, I've got to do something here, and I had a working visa for the UK, and it's pretty common for Aussies, as you might know, to go across to London and pour beers in the pub, and that was
the same thing.
That was the plan.
To Australia, actually. That's pretty much what.
Right. Exact. Yes, that was the plan. But then I thought it didn't really excite me to go and do that. I like to have a beer, but to be pouring beers in a pub in London didn't really sort of thrill me. So I was in San Sebastian and thought, what can I do? What can I do? And I had a friend there that I met on a previous backpacking trip a couple of years ago that ran pensions, like hostels, basically, like pop-up hostels over the summer. So I thought, hang on, maybe I'll do that. I'll rent out an apartment for the summer, and then I'll just find some other backpackers to come and stay with me, and I'll mark it up and try and make some money that way. And it kind of worked.
This is interesting. Sorry, just to jump in. I'll probably be jumping in.
Right.
This is a lot of interesting stuff here. So I didn't realize this existed. There's a bunch of people at the time just renting out a house or an apartment and making their own kind of non-regulated hostel, just renting out rooms.
That's
cool.
Yeah, exactly, and just quietly on the non-regulated part.
That's right.
Although it was 15 years ago, so it was before the hostel world, and I didn't even have a Hotmail account or anything back in those days. So people would just jump off trains and then they'd go around, walk around the old town, and start buzzing on doors to look for an apartment. So I used to go down, and there was a whole bunch of other old ladies from locals that would be down at the train station, and we'd go approach the backpackers and say, do you need a place to stay?
I remember those days. I mean, that's probably a similar age, because I remember the days when you used to turn up to a city and there'd be people hanging around, especially in Eastern Europe. You'd get the old ladies around the train station with their apartments or renting and stuff. It was interesting. You don't see that. I think Airbnb and everything's just blitzed out nowadays, but that's how it used to be.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it was just me and the old ladies down at the station hanging out, and it was great. It was great fun. But I had a sort of a bit of a competitive advantage on them in that I spoke English fluently, and I was another backpacker myself. So, they'd go off and, say something in Spanish, and the backpacker would look at them very blankly and then look at me and say what she's saying. She's looking for, do you need a place to stay, mate? I've got one. And they said, yeah, cool, off we go. So started doing that, and it worked really well. And I started over the summer, I was hanging out with all these backpackers, and I was going out, taking them out to the old town, and we go drinking together and these kind of things. And I thought, why don't I start creating some parties? Back in those days, pub crawls in Europe didn't really exist. And so I thought, hang on, I'd seen the concept in Australia, and I thought, I'll just do a pub crawl around this town. And so that worked really well.
I guess you get money from all the bars that people go into and stuff, and...
Yeah, little one. It was more, I just was after the free drinks, to be honest, from the bars. But they sold tickets for it and created some really good parties and nights, and we started doing that, and then boat parties, and we started doing surfing trips along the Spanish and French Basque coasts, and then I moved across to Barcelona and started doing some Spanish cooking classes and bike tours and these kind of things. And it was basically just doing what I wanted to do as a traveller. I think that's, one thing that I strongly believe in. If you're going to create events, create something which you're really passionate about yourself, and that you look at it and go, right, I would love to do this myself.
That's a great tip, because then at least there's a market of at least you'd be paying for this thing, so there's probably other people like you.
Exactly. And then, you need to know, is there enough people like you? And that's how big is the market size.
Sure.
But if you really want to do it, and then you're going to be extremely passionate about it, and you're going to want to create something really awesome, and it's going to really excite you, which is really important, I think, if you're creating an event. You need to have this, vision of something how it's going to be, and it's just going to be awesome. You'll sort of work towards that. And a lot of the time it doesn't, turn out the shape of it will be different to the way you envision it, but you'll work towards something whereby it'll just be something which you would dream about going to.
Definitely. It's tough to fake enthusiasm like that. That's the thing. If you're really genuinely enthusiastic about it, then people can always tell when they come to your event, whatever it is, even if it's a pub crawl or if it's a tour you're doing, they can see that you're really into it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think, like that's probably the number one thing that I would say, like for people at events, do something which you love. But I think that another thing which I've learned, sort of in my time running events is don't expect to attend your own event.
Yeah.
Don't expect to or participate in your own event. And that I think is one of the drawbacks to it. So you've got this dream and vision and, you've created something which you want to participate in yourself. But then a lot of the time, you don't actually get to participate and you're sort of like, you don't get to enjoy it. You don't get to experience it from the participant side,
No.
which can be really disappointing or like, it can be a bit of a shame, really.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I spent the first 2 years in a state of constant stress running conferences and things and that. And now I kind of enjoy it more. Maybe I've got a team and sometimes I can turn up and actually not present and just meet people and then I enjoy it. But it's taken a long time to get to that, Like the first event I ever ran was just pure, like awful, just running around like crazy. Everything's going wrong. The catering's not here. This is wrong, But anyway, let's get on to it. So you were doing these tours. What was the next stage? What was the next stage in your journey?
Then I was doing targeting backpackers, and then as I got a little bit older and balder, then I started targeting other markets and started doing some group tours for whether it be families or sort of like broader sort of like older market.
How were you marketing these tours then? You were based in Spain still, were you? When you were marketing tours?
Yeah. Yeah, it's based in Barcelona. I mean, I would come and go. I was location independent, and I travelled around and then but always went back to Barcelona through other agents. A little bit of online stuff, but it's never been a strong point of mine. I think we could have done that a whole lot better. And then we started doing festivals as well. And then
what type of festivals? Like music festivals?
The most successful one was taking people to Oktoberfest.
Okay.
Up in Germany. And so I was sort of doing that. And then that really, took off. But then, I don't know, a few years ago, I wanted to, I guess, sort of like get into the like entrepreneurial sort of scene and be creating group events for entrepreneurs because they were the kind of people that I wanted to hang out with.
I guess you'd read the 4-Hour Workweek. Just to step in here quickly to mention our sponsor, Events Frame, a project I'm co-founder of, and I want to mention our integrations, which we believe are the best available. Firstly, payment integrations. You can connect any payment gateway such as Stripe, PayPal, on Braintree, or even bank account or take cash. You can connect everything to Events Frame. We also have the best marketing integrations out there with every email marketing system, including MailChimp, Zapier, Infusionsoft, Aweber, Drip. And we've got deep integrations with all the social media platforms like Facebook, Google, and Twitter. We've got thousands of events live on EventsFrame right now, ranging from small community meetups to huge trade shows and conferences. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. That's eventsframe.com. And now, back to the interview. By this time, like everyone else, and you started realizing about this whole became a thing about the whole digital nomad location independent thing.
Funnily enough, no, I hadn't. I sort of maybe learned about it a bit later, and I guess it was a few years ago, whereby maybe 5 years ago, I don't know, but that I went into a co-working space for the first time. I'd never heard of it, and I went in there and I thought, wow, this is great. This is what I needed when I was in Barcelona or when I was traveling around, sort of around the world, like to be able to go in there and meet other people that are sort of working for themselves and other entrepreneurs and people that are sort of like-minded. And it's when it really sprung to my mind that it's okay, co-working spaces, I can see the benefit of that. But hang on, these things, like I believe, like what is needed for co-working spaces to effectively pop up in other parts of the world, and they don't. Why have them in one place when you can take your laptop and work from anywhere? Why don't we do some co-working, trips, and then. That's when the idea for Coworkation came up. Like I basically said to myself, like the Coworkation, I think is going to become a word. And then maybe it already exists. So I did some Google searches and it wasn't a word.
So you got the domain coworkation.com.
Yeah, exactly. And I just sat on it for a couple of years, and then, but because I, was still loosening ties on my other businesses, finally got around to setting it up a couple of years ago in Bali and starting working on it. And then sort of through Coworkation, is when I started looking into basically other related companies that potentially we could partner with. And like, I'm very interested in this whole sort of like scene that was happening. And then I kind of realized that there was a lot of other companies, either similar to what I was doing with Coworkation or loosely or tightly related. I thought, hang on, like, all these different things that are popping up sort of around the world, and events and different ways of working. It's sort of like it is really becoming quite a movement.
So can we just dig into Coworkation and what we haven't really explained what it is and how you were running it, because I guess it's kind of like a retreat. People stay in a house for a period. I don't know how long it is. Can you just dig into what it is you were doing and how you promote it? Because I'm very curious. I know Chris Reynolds did something similar with the Entrepreneur House, I think. Similar kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, so similar kind of thing. So basically, like, it's a retreat for it's a working retreat, work and life retreat. Yeah. And so there'll be different ones, like whether that be for entrepreneurs and freelancers, location independent professionals, or company teams as well. The idea is for you to step out of your day-to-day working environment and go into somewhere inspirational and new, and in like a place where you sort of like can step off the plane or off the boat or just off the bus, wherever it might be. You don't have to travel far like we do some, like a couple of hours out of, or 1 hour out of Barcelona for people in Barcelona. But getting the act of getting out of your normal routines and daily environment will break your patterns so that you can start to transcend boundaries, and it frees you up to start thinking outside the box. And then by doing that as well, and together with a group of other like-minded people that are working on their own projects as well, whereby you can sit down and have some really interesting and inspiring conversations. You can share experiences and knowledge. The combination of the inspirational location with these really interesting people doing different things, I believe, can have enormous effects on your business, but also on your life. We integrate into everything we do the personal development and the lifestyle design side of it. Basically, because I'm a big believer in that it's necessary, ever more than now more than ever. There is such a fusion between work and life, and being location independent or having more freedom to be able to work from anywhere or work on your own timetable, etc., has its advantages, but it's got some real challenges and disadvantages as well.
Definitely. And also, sorry to jump in,
right.
I think you're right, because I think with the online world, because the world is so online now that people want to meet up more than ever in person. It's like an increasing because they spend so much of their time isolated online, especially entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sort of seeing the way the interactions happen when you've got, smallish groups of 15 to 20 people in these really incredible, magical locations. They jump off the bus, they relax, and they start to connect, and they start to, feel or really inspired. By the time they leave, they're really ready to make some changes in their business and in their lifestyle.
So how long do these events last, and how many you run? I guess you go to them all yourself. Like, how many of you kind of run, and is it like a week, 2 weeks? What's the format?
I need to get back onto them. Look, the format is anything from a weekend. We've done getting out of Barcelona for a weekend and going to this beautiful 13th century monastery for a few days. Anything through to 1 week. Toying around with the idea of doing some longer 1 month ones. And then we've sort of done, we did Tuscany and quite a few I was based in Barcelona, so a number through Barcelona. And then I've moved to Australia. I've got to be setting up some things here to do around in Australia, and then also in Bali. Next year, going to be doing some in a private island,
where's that located?
Near Bali.
Near Bali, okay, great.
Yeah, so we'll have the island exclusive for the retreat. It's a beautiful tropical island. Takes about 20 minutes to walk around. So that's really excited about having that one set up.
Just curious, so just talking logistics here, 'cause that's really interesting. So you book out this house or whatever for the week. Then how are you promoting it? How are you getting people to come? Like, how are you getting? Are you building an email list? Are you promoting in forums and things? What's your sort of marketing channel to get people to come to your events?
I mean, still working on that. I guess you always are.
No one's ever got everything figured out, but obviously you've got people to come.
Yeah, so through newsletters, social media, Facebook is the main one for
So
Coworkation.
you have a Facebook group for Coworkation, do you?
Facebook page.
Facebook page. Okay, I'll join that right now. So,
Yeah.
and how are you getting people? Like, how are you getting people to join the page and join the newsletter? Are you doing content, or what's your way to get people in the first place interested in hearing about it?
Yeah, it's through content. A lot of it is through content.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, we're dealing with interesting stuff. So that it's I think a lot easier for us to create a following because we're going to beautiful locations. Some of the social media the photography and the videography that we've got, magical.
Yeah, so you got some cool YouTube videos on Coworkation channel.
Yeah, got some interesting ones there. And look, I mean, what we're doing really lends itself to be able to do that. But then also the broader movement, sort of like things that related to this new way of working and living. People are genuinely interested in it. So, and I talk a lot about, Coworkation talks a lot about, I guess this, I believe it's a movement, or the evolving way in we're working and living. People are really interested because they're living it. We're all in this at the moment. Yep. Some people more so than others, but things are changing and they're changing rapidly. It's no longer just for freelancers. Companies are starting to look at workplace flexibility and how they integrate it in there. People are genuinely interested in this evolution of how we work and live. I'm very passionate about it, and that's why I created the festivals side of it to be able to unite this location-independent movement.
So I just want to finally move on to that. So we've talked about your co-workation retreats. You've obviously run quite a big conference. I'm not sure how many times you've run it. I think a couple of times, Freedom X Fest. So could we talk a bit about your conference, what that is, and how you how you run that basically? Because I know you run it kind of in a remote place.
The first festival was this year in August. So we had
2018.
Yeah, exactly. So we had 427 people in the middle of the Pyrenees.
427 people for your. So you must have done something impressive on the promotion to get that many people. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think we did well. It just goes back to what I'm saying in that people are really interested in this, and there is no event like what we're doing. Basically, the way it came about was because I wanted to unite the companies within this location independent movement. There's no sort of like central point to sort of say, hey, this is a movement. Look at all these different companies. It's not about Coworkation.
What do you mean? Do you mean companies? Do you mean that the companies that the people run who attend, or companies that are sponsoring? Like, what do you mean by the companies here?
Okay, so if you're looking at there's a lot of different co-workation kind of companies running retreats, but there's also companies, podcasters. There's a lot of journalists writing about it. Yeah. I was just having a chat with one of our sponsors, Safety Wing. They do insurance for digital nomads and remote workers. There's a lot of companies that now have remote work or distributed teams and workforces, and so there's also a whole lot of companies and startups that are sprouting, targeting all these remote workers, location independent professionals, digital nomads, etc. A good example of that is what's called co-living, which is basically a new style of accommodation, specifically catering boards for independent professionals, remote workers, and digital nomads.
So these are people you've got these companies as sponsors of the event, basically.
Well, some are sponsors, others are just partnering, others are just attending. But it's like any conference that you've got. The idea is to bring us all together. I've got a database of probably 350 odd companies that are sort of all related to this, what I call the location independent movement there. Yeah. And so invited some along and asked for sponsorship from others. And then we sort of come down. So it was a really great way to connect with other business owners or people working within this ecosystem. But then also for people that are interested in this new way of working and living that would wanted to come along and listen listen to the talks and the workshops and connect with other like-minded people, there was also a lot of that. So a lot of our target market for the individual companies were at the festival as well.
So what was because that's a really impressive number for a first event, over 400 people. Like, what was your main way of getting people? Was it through these partner companies, or was it just putting stuff on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, or forum? I'm just curious. Like, what was your big thing that you connected with that many people? Because it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, look, a real mix. I think through the partners brought some. We brought others through newsletter mail outs, through social media campaigns. And I think through word of mouth as well, like a lot of it, because I think because this is quite unique, what we did and what we're doing.
Can you explain about the location and where it was and how you structured the whole thing?
Yeah, so I stumbled across this village 2 hours from Barcelona, which is kind of a village, but not really a village. So it used to be a village, and then it was abandoned, and then a family took over it and renovated it, and basically, like, they do a lot of weddings there and these kind of things. And there's like, I can't remember, I think there's like 13 or 15 cottages, and then also through my first company that I set up in Spain, we have a lot of tents and sleeping bags and the things that we use for festivals. Sure. So we had a lot of people camping there as well. And then other people would find their own accommodation. And it's like in this incredibly unique location 2 hours from Barcelona with Pyrenees mountains halfway up with them. And so you've got the Rocky Mountains behind, and then you look down below the valley, and it's got a lovely swimming pool. There's hiking trails, there's rock climbing, there's football fields, there's volleyball, there's this, that. We just set up stages. I think there's two sort of like large stage areas and then the third workshop area. So it was an extremely unique location for a very unique event. And that's, what I'm all about, is making sure that the location is unique and inspirational to be able to create something awesome.
And what was the format? And I'm curious, how many assists? Did you have volunteers helping? Did you pay people? What's your team? Is it just you? Do you have VAs or like how were you?
No.
Because that's quite a lot of people to coordinate. Did you get volunteers?
Team of around about 20 people working on different levels there.
Were these people from the venue or people you were employing to run the event?
No, they came to you. They're all sort of like within the location independent sort of network, I guess. Yes. There was also volunteers that, once again, like we put newsletters out and say, do you want to come and volunteer? We had other volunteers that came along. Yeah, so I don't know. It was a fantastic event, and so now the focus is on setting it up for 2019.
Yeah, where are you planning on running it in 2019?
Well, there is going to be 2 locations. In June, we have a private island. We've got rented out the whole island. Will be exclusive for the festival near Bali. On there's it's, I don't know how many hectares, but it takes 20 minutes to walk around the island. There's 17 villas on the island. Plus we'll be doing some camping and marquees and glamping and this kind of thing, but then also having accommodation on the surrounding islands. That's going to be very exciting. That's the potential for us to, that it gives us by the fact that we've got an island exclusive for the event. So,
and how many days are you planning on running the event?
It's 1 week.
1 week. Wow. So it's a long event, a lot of workshops, a lot of breakout sessions and stuff.
Absolutely. We'll be setting up zones underneath palm trees, and
nice.
We've got a pirate ship that we'll be doing workshops on as we're sailing around. And then it's one of those things it's not only work, it's also enjoyment. So there'll be, diving, snorkeling, surfing trips. There'll be live music. There'll be, Indonesian cooking classes and these kind of things as well, because really, firstly, it's spread out over 7 days, and the idea, but it's really to try and create a microcosm for what this whole movement is all about, and it's about the intersection between work and life.
Fantastic. Where's the second event you're planning? You said you were planning two events.
Yeah, in Spain in October, 1 hour from Barcelona, in a 13th century monastery where I've done a few retreats. It's an incredible place. It's absolutely magical. It's got a beautiful infinity swimming pool that overlooks a national park. It's luxurious in the accommodations and the setup. It's got a beautiful, but it maintains its heritage. You still walk in and feel as though you're in a 13th century monastery until you look at the bathrooms and the beds and the furnitures around and these kind of things. So it's huge old church or chapel was part of it, where we'll be doing there'll be the main stage in this thing, and so you've got the pulpits in there and these beautiful archways. It's going to be pretty incredible.
Sounds good. Look, it'd be great to talk longer, Stuart. Unfortunately, we have to cut it short today, but that's a really good overview of what you're doing. Really interesting stuff, and I think this trend of the co-workation type event where it's a focus on building your business, but also having a holiday at the same time is one that's just getting bigger, and it's really cool what you're doing here. So best of luck with everything, and it's been great to talk.
Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
All the best.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Do you want to sell more tickets to your amazing events? EventsFrame event ticketing has been built to minimize the amount of time it takes to buy a ticket. Result? You sell more tickets. Check out eventsframe.com.